Hey everyone, it's Timmy Gobbles, and today I'm going to be going over making a level editor. So what are the things we need? We're going to need a level editor scene, and we're going to need to look at how to save and load information, specifically a level, and maybe like a list of levels. And we're also going to want to know how to edit tiles. I don't have anything in this game for like enemies or items or any of that stuff. So don't worry about that. We're not doing that today. Maybe another day though. Maybe I'll have like a follow-up as I build this game or something. Okay, so let's look at the class. So what is the class going to need? So you'll want to be able to see the level. So we'll need a camera. And we're probably going to want to have a level in it that's going to get edited. So maybe we'll start off with like a tile map, and maybe it gets more complicated as we go through. I already think we're going to be replacing that with I have like a level class or something I'll probably use. And oh, you know what? We should make it so we can move the camera around. So let's do some input events. So like up, down, left, right, maybe controls moving the camera. And I think because it's a tile-based map, I'm going to have each button press is going to correspond with moving that camera one tile unit to, you know, the direction or whatever. So we need a like move camera function. So it's going to take a vector. I was having this issue where doing like the plus equals wasn't working. It was assigning it worked well, but doing plus equals wasn't working for whatever reason. So my solution was to just keep track of where I want the camera to be, and then I can add to that and then set that equal to it. All right, so we need to think about what is a level. What do we need a level to do? So I think it's, for now, it's just going to be the tile map, and maybe not. It's going to have like nodes that hold enemies and items and NPCs, maybe shops, fun stuff, you know, moving tiles. Maybe we could have tiles that like looks like a door that opens, kind of slides out of the way. All right, here's a bunch of jank code from my last video. What all this does is I have that binary space partition trees things I went over, right? So that generates a dungeon. So we need to convert that matrix class to the tile map. So based on the value of any point in that matrix, we're going to pass that through this match function, and then that's going to go tell the correct function what to do with the tile map. Enough about that. Okay, so now that that's set up, let's like make a random dungeon and then take a look and see if it looks good. And look at that, there's a dungeon and it's too freaking close. So maybe we need a button that like zooms in and out the camera. So let's add that, a zoom in and a zoom out. And you're be like, well, how are you gonna zoom in or out the camera? Well, we're gonna go to that inputs function. So I'm gonna use the left and right caret as my zoom in and zoom out buttons. Okay, and like I can play with the values, but I'm gonna use a clamp to keep it between like the max zoom in is 1 or what. Okay, well, you know, that doesn't look very good, does it? Oh, it's because I had it zoomed in at 4. Okay, so maybe we'll have it zoom in to twice that, and we'll have it zoom out to 1/4. And it's good enough, you know, looks good. Now let's move on. You're also going to want to have a menu. I totally forgot about having a menu, man. How are we going to know what tiles you're placing if you don't have a menu? All right, there's going to be like 2 parts to this menu. So we need to have a menu for selecting and creating a new level. Maybe that's going to have like a line enter that you can, you know, come up with a new level name, and it'll probably have like a list of levels you can pick from that you've already edited or made. And what else do we need? Oh yeah, we need like a heads up display that kind of shows what tiles you would be placing. Next, we're going to look at the class for saving a level. So Godot has this built-in type called resource. And I know you're supposed to use JSON files for security and who knows, I don't know, some kind of made-up reason just to make people feel good that they know how JSON works. Anyways, we got these resource classes and they let you use two other classes. They let you use the resource saver and the resource loader. And so our goal is, so I'm using a grid of data to populate my level. So if I want to save the level, I need to save that grid of data. We can use the export prefix to tell a resource what it needs to save. So the resource saver, and you use the save function, and self means it's pointing at, hey, I want to save myself. And then you can have then you can put your save name in. Now, if you're shipping your game with this, you're going to want to have the resource location prefix with user : / no, just 2 forward slashes, and then the suffix is going to depend on what you're saving. So I usually have been using text resource, so .tres, but like if you have it in like a binary form, it's probably better to use BRES. There's also TSCN, which you might find familiar when you save a scene. So once you have that class set up, you'll want to call it in your level editor. So I just made like a save level, load level functions that are going to call, they're going to make a level saver, throw the matrix in it, and then tell it to save. And then when we load it, we're going to say, hey, load a level saver from here. And then we're going to take the matrix from that level saver and throw it on our level and tell it to populate. Now to test that out, I'm going to link that up to some buttons. So I have Z makes a random level, and then X saves, and let's have C is going to load a level. Whatever the, I think I just have like a fixed value. So all right, I've ran into my first big pitfall. What the heck is going on here? All right, so if you look at the error, it's place tiles from matrix I in base nil. So what's happening is when I call the resource loader, it's trying to load something and it's saving it, or like it's instantiating it as a variable, and that variable has the type null. When you look at my initializer function, it doesn't work if there's no values passed into it. And so when we call the resource loader, it's going to be calling the new function for that type. And when it does that, that new function is going to call the initializer, and it's going to fail, so it's going to be loading a nil, or it isn't going to load anything up at all. So the easy way to fix that is to fix the initializer so that it works with bad inputs, pretty much, or no inputs. All right, so we also need a resource to save the names of the levels, because we want the player to be able to come up with basically new projects and name them and stuff like that, and be able to save and load them. And we might as well use what we learned, and I'm just going to use the same thing, but the thing is, I'm never going to be changing the file location, so I'm going to have a constant variable that just keeps track of that name. All right, so what does it need to hold? It needs to hold a list of strings, and we want a function that checks when we try to add a new string. We want to make sure we don't already have that in our list. That way, every level has a unique name. And there's a bunch of functions in array that does this, like .has is probably the most appropriate. I ended up using count, which was really stupid, but it worked, so deal with it. All right, again, for save and load. So we use the resource saver for save, and we need to save itself at the name level names dir. I think that's supposed to be short for directory, but I don't know. And then for load, we just need that name. You usually want to make sure the file exists. And if it doesn't exist, then what we probably want to do is start an empty value at that location, but I don't think I ended up putting that in. And I put some requirements on names. I didn't want them to be super long, so I kept a 64 character limit. I think that's reasonable enough. You couldn't do it with 64, then you can't do it with 65. And there we go, it's a level that I loaded, maybe. Or is that an error? Looks like I still have an error. Oh yeah, because I didn't give a name to the level name for like when I was testing the scene. All right, cool. And oh yeah, I have this issue where when I place down a new dungeon, it doesn't clear out the old one. So I'll need to fix that real quick. All right, let's see. I'm at 11 minutes in, and how much do I have left to edit? No, come on. Okay, so now it's time to do that part of the menu where it's a list of names. So in this panel, I need to put a line in it, and that I'm going to want the line in a little wider so I can mess with the sizing and stuff. I'm going to put a button over here that says enter. So you can type something in, you can click the button, or you can hit enter on the keyboard. When this menu comes up, I want it to load that list of names, and for each name in that list, I want it to make a button that has text equal to the name of that level. Then if I click on those buttons, I want the game to load that level. Now if the player types in a name that's unique and hits enter, I want it to make a new level and add that to the list of names, the list of level names. All right, so when this menu comes up, I want to load the list of names and store it into my variable for that, saves list. And I want a function that takes that VBox and fixes all the buttons in it based on the list. Okay, so we need to look at instantiating a button. So if I loop through each name in the save list, I'll make a button, I'll set its text equal to that name, and then I'll add that button as a child of that VBox. Also, I need to specify the container sizing. So horizontally, I want it to fill. I want it to fill the width of the container. But vertically, I want it to shrink begin so that the list starts at the top and it fills as we add more and more buttons. Eventually, the list gets too long, and since we have this VBox in a scroll container with a scroll bar, then we'll be able to scroll up and down in that list. All right, so what does this bind thing do? So the button emits a signal when it's pressed. Well, I want to connect that signal to a function, and I'm going to use bind to customize that function basically, because I want to be able to pass the name of the button to the function. I couldn't do that without using bind. So what bind does is it makes it callable that puts in, so you know how I have bind open parentheses, it's going to take that value and pass it at the end of whatever values I pass in that function. Because otherwise I would need a different function for each button. And so here's a brief example of how bind works. Because it always takes that input and puts it at the end of the input of the function it's bound to. So like food takes 3 variables. If I put in 2 on my bind and 1 on my call, then that's going to be a total of 3 variables. Okay, so now that buts work, let's go ahead and, I guess I should like name the enter button and have it work. So yeah, let's hook up that enter button to something. Now, line edits have their own signal for when you press enter, which is really nice. So we can have both that and the enter button call the same function. Now, when my editor UI wants to tell the parent something, we need to use some signals because we don't have a reference to the parent in here. And it's also probably not a good way to do that. I think it's better to make signals to tell the parent something happened that it has to deal with. All right, let's link up those signals I just made. All right, so what do each of these signals need to do when they go off? So like load save level, we need to pass the name that came through that signal and then tell the level editor to load the level. And then similarly for save level and new level, we need to come up with some kind of logic for what those do. All right, so now that those are linked up, we need to do some testing, make sure it works. So we'll make some kind of name, and we can't see anything because I'm in the UI and not the right thing. All right, so we'll put a new save in, start the new level, go again, and we can click into it and we get an error. All right, so when I start a new level, I need to make sure that I'm not using variables that don't exist. So let's go ahead and make that dungeon matrix just blank when we have a new level. Later I fix this by starting a new level having a default size. So when you make a new level, it makes a matrix of that size, even if you don't put anything in it. And let's have another save. And okay, there's a level. Now, one of the things I need to work on is scaling this icon in the middle. And another thing we can do is return an empty level saver when we try to load one that doesn't exist. And I can do a similar thing when I try to load a level in the level scene when I don't have a matrix. I can make a new one, a new matrix so that it doesn't error. All right, go ahead and center myself, and yeah, it's doing something. Okay, so I want to change how that center icon looks, and we're going to use the custom size property of that texture range rectangle. When I zoom in, I need to tell the UI to make that icon bigger, and when I zoom out, I need to tell it to make it smaller. So let's go ahead and make a function that does both of that. There we go. And then let's go back to the level editor. And when I zoom in and out, we're going to call that function and tell it to increment or decrement the, not really increment, decrement. It's more like just zoom in, zoom out, enlarge, unenlarge, shrink, enlarge, shrink. Probably shouldn't use those words. Oh, funny error. So why is pixel size a vector 2 and not a vector 2i? I don't know. Oh, another funny error. I've been doing clamps wrong the whole time. So I'll go ahead and fix that where I see it. Or if you want to be funny, you can like tag one of the early times you used a clamp and tell me how bad it was in chat. And then we'll all know you didn't see up to this point. All right, let's give it a look-see and see if I got this right. And I didn't. That looks like it's going the wrong direction. And it's pretty good. It's just off by a factor of 2, it looks like. All right, so got that fixed. Still haven't fixed the clamp, but you know. Okay, good. The sizes are right. It's just not starting on the right size. So let's go ahead and fix the starting size. And throw in a level. And ta-da! Look at that. Okay, so now I need to make these icons match the 4 or 5 different possibilities that I have. So what I want to do is I want the color of the one that's selected to like be bright white, and all the others, the ones that aren't selected, I want those to be a little bit like transparent and darker. Maybe not transparent, it's not the right word. Definitely darker. And so then my idea is to have an array of references to all those different texture rectangles. So this cycle center icon is going to control what those icons look like and what the center icon looks like. when I have the room tile selected, I want the icon in the center to be a room tile, and I want on the bottom bar, I want the room tile to be highlighted, the others to be dimmed. And then, you know, same thing for like a room wall tile or a corridor tile. And so one of the things we have to do is we need to wrap, because I want when you're on the right end of that menu and you hit the right button, maybe not right arrow, I need to come up with some like button scheme, as I haven't. It wraps around to the other side, because I kind of like that kind of feature in these kinds of menus. All right, so I have to loop through all those tile references and dim the ones that aren't on the right index and brighten the one that is on the right index. Now I try to do this with hex values for the color, but I couldn't figure that out because it says, oh, use this 0x prefix. So I did that and it doesn't work. So I ended up just using a RGB kind of value or something. Oh yeah, and I need to fix the center icon texture. And while I'm at it, let's add some buttons. And so since we have new buttons, we need to add those to our event manager, our input manager, input, event, something. And this way of doing references doesn't work. But if we make all these a unique name, then we can do it this way. So let's go ahead and fix that. Yeah, you know what? Let's just not do that in the variable area. We'll do that on way easier. Okay, there we go. And as I move those carrots left and right, it's gonna change the highlight of the icons at the bottom. And while I'm at it, let's fix some of the icons. They match what they're supposed to be. And next we need a button for placing a tile. So I'm just gonna use spacebar. And we'll have to go ahead and add that to our inputs. And then we need a function that, you know, places the tile. Go ahead and make that. So what is that going to need to do? That's going to need to take the selected tile index from the HUD and then go tell the level inside our level editor what to do with that. So we need to change the value on the dungeon matrix equal to that index plus 1, I think, for now. And because I'm doing something that I hadn't had in mind when I was making all this junk in here, I'm gonna need to clean it up so that it works with just like changing one tile. Or actually, you know, I get really lazy, and what I end up doing is I just replace all the tiles every time I change one tile. And that's why you're gonna see, because I have them randomized a little bit, just loading the same level over and over again changes all the different tiles over and over again, which isn't very good, but it's what I did. All right, so let's try that out. Here is a random dungeon, and I can place tiles, and something looks wrong. This isn't the way it should be. Those should be doors, even though doors are just floor tiles. Okay, so I have some kind of index issue, so I'm gonna go ahead and fix that. All right, so now it's kind of working. We can place a wall, looks pretty good. We can put some corridor here, bam, look at that. We made our own room. Only took 20 hours or however long into this I am. All right, now something I wanna do. When I designed my random level editor, I designed it with rectangular rooms in mind. But what if we want a little corner cut out of the room, like an L shape or something? So we need to be able to handle these interior corner tiles, or that's what I ended up calling them. So when I auto tile a room wall, I have this big old if statement that looks at the neighboring tiles to determine what kind of wall I need to use. So I need to incorporate the interior corners into this somehow. So I start with trying to see if one of the corners has room, and then if one of the adjacent neighbors has walls, and that already messes me up, so that's good. I know something's wrong there. So then I try seeing if there's adjacent floor tiles on two sides, similar to how I would, usually place a flat wall tile, I can kind of extend that if into checking if there's a flat on one of the other sides. And this kind of works, and I get excited. And then I need to check some other cases though. So let's do it on 4 of the corners. And we can see here this still isn't working. And so pretty much I had to check everything twice, and only then would it truly work. Maybe. Let me make sure this is the one that works. Hey, look at that. I got some interior corners now. Sweet. We can make a plus sign. And while I'm at it, let's go ahead and make a delete tile button. So we'll need to add another aspect ratio and text rectangle tile. And I'm going to go ahead and use the rolling pin icon because we're rolling that tile out of there. And so it kind of makes sense to have it on the left because we'll be passing a value of 0. And then, you know, the icon just to the right of that is the room floor, and that has a value of 1. It just made more sense to order it from left to right like that. All right, get the rolling pin out, and bam, there we go. Deleting tiles left and right. Looks great. And for one last touch up, I want to put a border around the space in which the player can place tiles. Because if they put something down outside of that border, there's going to be an error. And I mean, ideally I would code it to handle the error, but you know, for another day. So as always, a new function means a new function. So let's make a fill border function. And we'll go ahead and look horizontally, I think. No, that is horizontal. And then we can do the top and the bottom in the same loop. And then I can go ahead and do vertically. Oh, you know, I got that mixed up. Eyes, no, I don't know anymore. And don't forget the corners. I use the railroad just because. All right, there we go. A nice border to tell you where your playground is. And one last thing. I'm gonna center the camera at when it loads up the level. So I just need to get the center of the level and then put the camera there. And I can go ahead and make this function for centering the camera. When we do a new level or we load the level or any of that stuff, bam, right in the middle. All right, one last test. So here's an empty level. And there's some kind of issue. All right, and we'll make some random rooms. I should probably have made a button for like clearing the level just to make it blank, but you know, again, another day. All right, so that's it for the level editor. This video took me a long time to get out, and that's because I was sick again and I was all nasally, and then someone pointed out that my audio has been having issues the last couple videos, so I was trying to troubleshoot that. And then while I was trying to record, my nose was just so, I don't know, I know I sound nasally now, and that's probably just the way I am, but I mean, this, I don't know, this has to be a little different. Anyway, so I got another little kick with little procgen algorithms, so I thought I'd show kind of some of that off. So here is cellular automata. There's a little pause at the beginning to let me full screen it, but I'm never fast enough. And here it is with crazy settings. It ends up almost looking like a maze, but it's not really walkable. So I had a lot of fun playing around with this algorithm. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but I see people use it a lot. And this one was called minimum spanning trees using Prim's algorithm. And what it does is it allows you to connect a bunch of points with smallest distance of connectee lines. And so what I plan to do with this is to see if this fixes my random room problems of having rooms cut each other off and going after non-optimal rooms. And so like I feel this is with too many random points. It's a little more coherent if we limit that down. Yeah, there we go. That looks a little better. Almost looks like cracks. And what the next video is most likely going to be about is adding enemies to the game. So here I have a little preview animation for the lobster's attack. And I can go ahead and make that full screen. Wham! Look at it, all squiggling around. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Y'all have a good one.